Greetings, everybody, and welcome to today's VentureBeat webinar on the power of creative, reaching consumers in health, fitness, and finance. Brought to you by yellowHEAD. My name is Dave Clark. I'll be your host for this VB Live event. Before we get started, just a few quick notes. This will be an interactive webinar today. If you have any questions for the speakers, we invite you to type them at any time under the Ask a Question tab that you'll find on your screen. Get all of those questions in. Don't be shy. And if your question happens to be specific to one particular person, if you could, please be sure to indicate that person's name in your question. You'll also notice on your screen that there is an attachments tab. We have a couple of links for you to click on that will take you to various resources that are associated with today's webinar topic. So when you have a chance, take a look. And finally, you'll also see that there's a rating system on your screen. You can use that to provide us with feedback at any time during the webinar. We love to hear from you. So you'll find that under the Rate This tab. Not only can you rate this webinar on a 5-star scale, but you can also send us comments. Like I said, we encourage you to do that at any time and as often as you like today. And I think that's everything you need to know for today's webinar. So we're going to get started now with today's discussion on the power of creative, reaching consumers in health, fitness, and finance. And we're going to begin here by meeting today's speakers. First, we have Dale Sperling, CMO at Stash. We also have Noah Miller, Creative Strategy Lead at yellowHEAD. Claudio Franco is CMO at GymPass, and Krista Nair is CEO at Bootcamp Digital. Let's meet Dale first. Dale, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do at Stash?
Great. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dale Sperling. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the CMO at Stash. Stash is a subscription-based financial platform, and we're empowering middle-class Americans to invest and build long-term wealth. I currently oversee a team of 25 plus very talented people who are responsible for paid and organic growth, product marketing, and Stash 101, which is our new free educational software, which is making its way into thousands of classrooms this fall and teaching the next generation everything they need to know about money before it actually becomes real. I've spent the majority of my 20 plus years career in marketing, cutting my teeth in the good old days when AOL used to ship out physical discs to your home. Now, having the opportunity to bring all my experiences together to take a startup from launch to millions of American households. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share a little about what I've learned with all of you here today.
Great. Thanks, Dale. Glad to have you today with us. Let's move next to Noah. What can you tell us about yourself, Noah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Noah Miller. I'm the Creative Strategy Lead at yellowHEAD. yellowHEAD is a performance marketing agency working with a bunch of clients through a bunch of different verticals. I've been working with the creative industry for over 10 years, and I'm happy to share all my knowledge with you today.
Thanks, Noah. Next up is Claudio. Claudio, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Claudio, CMO at GymPass for about 5 years now. And if you're not familiar with us, GymPass is a corporate wellbeing platform operating now in 10 countries. And we connect employees of our clients to thousands of partners through one single membership. So think of a pass that gives you access to Equinox, SoulCycle, Barry's, Strava, your favorite personal trainer with up to 70% discount of market prices. I started here when we were like a small company, Series B. Now we are on Series Z. I oversee a team of about 300 people from marketing, the membership business, and customer experience. And I'm happy to share my learnings throughout this journey. Thanks for having me.
Terrific. Thanks, Claudio. And finally, Krista, tell us about yourself and the work you do.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. My name is Krista Nair, and I'm the CEO of Bootcamp Digital. We specialize in digital marketing training and capability building. So I get to spend my days figuring out how to help organizations and businesses grow their results by better understanding how to use the digital tools at their disposal. So similar to Dale, I've been in this area for a long time. I always tell people I'm so old school. I did marketing on MySpace. Which if you were on MySpace, it was pretty awesome. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've written 6 books, and I'm really excited to talk about how creative can really play a key role in breaking through the noise online.
Thanks, Krista. And Krista, you're also going to be serving as today's webinar moderator, and we're ready to get started with that discussion now. So I'm going to turn things over to you. Take it away.
Excellent. Great. Hi, everyone. Now you can see us. So thanks so much for joining us today. And I'll start by telling our audience I'm really excited about the amazing talent we have on this call and some of the great tips that they have prepared for you. So when we started talking about sort of digital and digital creative, one of the things that we had discussed as a group was the importance of both earning attention and achieving business goals. So if we think in traditional, usually we focused only on business goals because we were paying for time. But now, even with paid, you have the quality score element. And so it's really a different ballgame. So I'm going to kick off with a question to all of our panelists. And the question is really, how do you balance the two goals of audience attention and sort of connecting with their needs, as well as meeting your business objectives and sort of blending those two together? And so, Dale, maybe we'll get started with you and you can share your insights there.
Great. Thanks, Krista. So great question. And it's the challenge we all face, every day in our work. And at Stash specifically, we look at things holistically. Our creative process very much mirrors the strategy used in our onboarding funnel. It very much has a lot of parallels. So you start with the segmentation, gathering research and insights to better understand the mental models of your prospects, as well as the environment they're in when they're actually engaging in the brand. And then you got to start with that hook. What's the customer outcome that you're going to deliver? Why should this person give you the one moment of their attention to consider your specific message? And I think nailing this as your starting point gives you the overarching thread that you'll build your creative around. The demand gen units and the places you'll introduce as benefit and the brand is just like that top of your onboarding funnel and should engage in that same way. And then every subsequent engagement thereafter, you need that creative that's action oriented, that takes that relationship one step further. And there's a balance, right, with every campaign of setting the stage and creating that demand gen and then delivering creatives and messaging that compel that prospect to act now. Like, why do they need to care right now? This is true for both like creatives themselves and for the spend. And where you allocate that spend, the different channels you spend, and the share that you spend in each of these channels. So creative, spend, channel all have to come together in that like beautiful balance of demand and action. And like there's no magic bullet, right? Every brand has to figure it out, and it's actually different for each new campaign that you engage in, because your brand is at a different point in its life cycle. So it's different whether you're starting out new. You might have to be super heavy on the brand side, or maybe you don't have the budget to be, and you have to be super heavy on that demand, gen on the DR side. And that can shift over time. So that's how we approach it.
That's great. And I think, you kind of bring up a really interesting consideration, which is thinking through the stages of the marketing funnel. And really, creative should be customized for each of those. And it takes that thinking up front about where your business is at to know where you're focusing your energy, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. Very cool. Claudio, how about you?
Yeah, I really like the way you describe it, because I think pretty much, in a very similar way. So consumer engagement, it's about a journey. So, and it's like dating someone. You don't propose on your first date. And likewise, if you don't, leave a good impression on your first engagement, you're not going to have a second chance. So here at Gympass, we always strive to be super creative and get stoppable power, along the journey. But, at the very beginning, the awareness and consideration stages, we try to wait a little bit more of the creative power and earn attention at the very early stage of this engagement. But on the later stage of the funnel, the business performance usually wins over creativity. So I'm the one in favor of always, pushing the envelope and trying to, be as much creative as possible. And it's critical in the beginning, but at the end, performance wins. So that's a little bit of, the mindset and how we typically, balance those two goals that are, equally important in today's crowd space we have in digital media, for instance.
I mean, that's great. And I think also the role of data is something we'll touch on a little bit later on in more detail, but that really is the key to even know what is or isn't working, right? Before we used to just get to have opinions. Like that seems so ridiculous now, right? But everyone used to be like, no, the red shirt is better. And now we have data. So it changes the way we think about creative and performance. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And then last, Noah, what are your thoughts?
So just adding on to what these two great teammates just said, I think that if I just look at the performance side of things, I think the beauty of performance is the fact that you don't have to select one message, but you have to play with a lot of different messages to see what works. So what we like to do when it comes to this kind of thing is we like to break down who is our target audience and understand what are their motivations and barriers, and try and make a lot of creatives that lead in with some sort of an emotional coming in from, something that they could relate to. And then in addition, bringing in pushing the creative envelope that you were discussing, and seeing how can we make creative that stops you. I mean, most people nowadays, they're on social media, they don't go on social media to see ads. They want the ads to, be a part of the experience that they're going through right now. So we need to combine these two together, bring this emotional motivation barriers, and then together with really awesome creative that, makes you stop while you're on your scroll or whatever you came in to do. And then together, try and achieve this goal of making people watch your ad, and then of course converting them to your business goals.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting you talk about stopping the scroll because, again, if you think traditional TV ad, we debated 15 seconds or 30 seconds. Studies show on Facebook, people spend 2.5 seconds in the newsfeed and 1.7 seconds on mobile. So you just don't have much time to earn that attention and get people excited. So it's great, to hear your insights there. So as we look at the discussion we have planned for today, one of the things we wanted to do is also make it relevant for sort of health, fitness, and financial services organizations. So I'd love to dive into some of the specific creative challenges that you have with your industry. And Claudio, maybe we'll start with you, because I know health and fitness is a very resonant category with tons of people, right? Like I think constantly about it. Maybe you can't tell, but it's a really resonant category. So what are some of the challenges that you uniquely face as sort of a health and fitness organization?
Yeah, happy to share. But yeah, I think there are two very unique challenges that I face on a day-to-day basis. So the first one is related to the industry we are. So wellness typically involves like changing a habit and changing a habit in a long journey. So typically consumers, they don't go from awareness to conversion in a matter of minutes, like fast fashion e-commerce, for instance. And every consumer has its own motivation, a problem they are trying to solve, an ideal solution. They think of it when they are considering this problem. And the solution we usually, the path that we usually take is like customizing the journey for every single persona. So matching their motivation, their demographics, how they engage with our product. So it's very key because we have multiple journeys, multiple motivations. And recently, we went from a fitness company to multi-wellness company. We enter in new categories like mental health, nutrition, individual personal training that it's very new. So we just added a new layer of complexity, and it's really key to understand the consumer journey, their motivation, and what is the ideal solution we have in our marketplace that would fit best to their needs. And the second challenge, this one is very unique as well. So we operate in a business to employee model. So we partner with clients like Bank of America, Tesla, SpaceX, and we need to engage their employees into wellness. So I have two very different buyer personas. So in one hand, we have HR leaders that are, looking into new benefits, how to improve their corporate wellness programs, and the journey is very different from the consumer. So think of a very long sales cycle with multiple decision makers, with different sponsors. And the larger the organization is, the more people we need to reach and we need to engage in order to partner with them. So more like on the B2B space. And then once we sign a deal, we have some cases like thousands, and we need to engage with their workforce. So the tools, the channels, the creative lines we use for those two very different persona groups, they are very different. So this is the second challenge that I face here, more on the business model that we operate under, and the first one on the industry, the wellness industry.
Well, and something you said that I think is really interesting, and it was touched on in a lot of answers, is, you're really focusing on the consumer journey and what is the right pain point to hit on. Because I think sometimes we get so obsessed with our own marketing goals, like, well, we need downloads, right? But if we don't have the right sort of pain point or motivator from a consumer standpoint, you're just dead in the water, not making any progress. So, Dale, I'll ask you sort of the same question. Obviously, you have a really different lens being in financial services, but what's the specific challenge that you have because you're in that space?
Yeah, we have a wonderful set of challenges, and I have gotten very comfortable and friendly with our legal and compliance teams over the past 5-6 years. And we operate, in a similar space to the type of regulation you see in pharma and other highly regulated industries. And as a registered investment advisor, which Stash is, we have to comply with advertising regulations that can be extremely limiting and create really unauthentic creative executions sometimes, right? For one, right, we can't share performance results, and we have to make sure that every statement is fair and balanced. And so when we say that you could grow your money, like a really amazing benefit, that's why you would want to invest in the stock market. You could grow your money. We also have to let you know that you could lose your money. And so it has to be fair and balanced. And we have to do that in a way that is still motivating and authentic and complies by all the regulation. I agree that all of these rules make sense, right, to protect the public, or else we'd have, snake oil sales, left and right around all these great earnings that are fake. But it's way more challenging than, say, like marketing a soup. And you've got this, beautiful kid and mom, scooping the soup together. It's so good and it's quick and easy. And like, I'd buy that. Like, sounds great. So, it's that and some other like complications around our fiduciary responsibility, where we can't actually share testimonials or encourage people to share. There's a lot, and so navigating this complex space and making creatives that still feel authentic is quite a challenge. Another one is really just our space. Our space is so crowded. There's so many financial services companies right now, a lot of fintech, a lot of old guard, and we're all marketing very similar products, right? A completely commoditized set of products. So how do we create a position that's both unique, memorable, distinctive, all of those things when we're saying the same things to people? Come here, we'll make your life better, less stress, and you'll make money. So how do you make that sound authentic, right? For one, on the Stash side, we've been focused on education and advice. And we believe that's our differentiating factor. And if we can motivate customers to invest in themselves and give them that advice and education, they need to learn to do it themselves. I think we can build the trust and confidence we need to retain those customers in this very competitive landscape. But, it's always changing, right? And so staying one step ahead, being on top of the regulation to know when you can take advantage of certain things that benefit the creative and still stay true to marketing in a RIA format, I think is all the things that we deal with every day.
Yeah, and you mentioned standing out in the crowd. It's tricky when there's so many people selling similar things, and especially if you think of financial services. Well, sure, everyone wants more money. Probably most people do.
That's
but
it.
People don't like, right, but nobody's like, let me find financial services tools, right?
Right.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And then for yellowHEAD, I know you work across a lot of different industries, including a number of clients in this space. So what are some of the challenges that you see sort of specific to these spaces with standing out with creativity?
Yeah, so I think again, in understanding the user and our end user and the process that they have to go through when making a decision, right? So health, fitness, as well as fintech, it means that you have to make a commitment. It's not like buying something or downloading a game. For example, if there was a fasting app, so you have to make a commitment to begin a fasting diet, right? Or if you wanted to start investing in the stock market, then you have to, it takes a lot of information and understanding, and it's not something easy to make that decision. So when you understand that at the end of the day, this is something that you have to kind of, escort your audience. You have to provide them the information and the content and the reasons to believe and the reason why. Then you kind of have to take them along that journey from the moment of awareness all the way to learning about, whether it's, just general details about the stock market or just specific things about, a way to diet. And you just really have to give them all that information and to take them hand by hand until you get to the conversion. So I think the beauty of this thing is that you have to understand, when do I make short ads? When do I make long ads? When do I talk just product? When do I talk, information? Because each phase of the user journey is a different phase, and you have to be there, to take them from one step to the other until that moment of making that decision. So I think that is something that once you understand it and you realize, this is my customer, this is what they have to go through, and then you create creatives for each one of those phases, it gives you a holistic marketing plan.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, that really thinking through the cycle is a lot more important, because even after somebody buys, I can download a fasting app, but if I don't fast, it's probably not so effective, and I'm probably not going to stick around very long. So there certainly is a lot more complexity. We got a question from the audience, and for those of you joining, one of the amazing opportunities is that you can ask questions. So take a look in your questions section. Feel free to type questions in. I'll be looking at them throughout. But the question that came through, which is a great one, is that, you all touched a little bit on earning attention. And I had said earlier, you only have 2.5 seconds on desktop, 1.7 on mobile. So the question is, like, how specifically do you earn attention in this cluttered space? How do you stand out and get someone to pause and pay attention to you? Who wants to start? You can raise your hand, maybe, since we have video on. I can see. Okay, Dale's volunteering. Over to you.
Yeah, I think it goes back to knowing your audience and putting the right piece of creative in front of them. And I think a good example of this is a copy that or creative that has a question format, right? That is meant to sort of solicit your attention. That's worked really well for us in many different formats, specifically, that scroll format where you have that 1 second. And if you know that pain point of that customer, or just, what they're going through, what they're thinking about, even though they're scrolling, right? Like, they're bored, they're interested in someone else's social media. Like, what's that hook? And how do you relate your product to what they're thinking and feeling at that moment with a question? It's those little nuances, creative by channel, by moment, and by customer, that you need to connect to, that I think helps you stand out.
Yeah, I think you make a great point of the hook has to balance those two things of it's what the consumer pain point is, but also making your product relevant in there, right? So if I think one of my biggest pet peeves on social media is happy holidays from X business. It's like, how is it relevant? I don't need to hear happy holidays from 5,000 businesses I've heard of before, but there is a way to make it relevant. If I think in financial services, money is tight. If you think about in fitness, people way overeat. So there's ways to add that, but it does take some work to think through that resonance. So I love that point. Claudia, what are your thoughts on sort of how you earn that attention fast?
Yeah. So, the fitness space is super crowded, and there is a stigma of the perfect body, of, professional performance when you start doing something. And one of the first tactics we used, back in 4 years ago was, breaking this expectation and changing the way people see fitness, how they, change their lifestyle and not following what the majority of the industry was doing. So breaking this expectation is something that we started back then, and turning our brand into a more inclusive, undemanding, and joyful brand was something that really, stood out of the crowd. And we started to resonate more, because some people, they just don't want to have the perfect body. They don't want to become an athlete. If you have a body, you might not want to be an athlete. So that's something that we started and resonate pretty well with our audience. And learning from our audience as well, we noticed that 80% of our main members, they didn't have a subscription before, or they have never been to a gym before. So we are very inclusive benefit for companies. So we need to educate them. We need to present them the options of getting healthy. Getting healthy is not only about, going to the gym, weighting, some lifts, and that's it. There are multiple options, and that can be fun. You don't need to sweat out. You don't need to, feel the pain. No pain, no gain. You can, live out of this, out of this mood. So that's something that we usually use to break this expectation when people hear about, fitness, lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, now I want to work out with you guys. No pain sounds perfect. But the other thing too, we're going to show some creative examples in a little bit, but something that resonated with me is like the element of unexpectedness, which you kind of said, right? You always expect a fitness thing to just show super in shape people, but there's a lot of unexpected ways to demonstrate that. And I think we'll see more of that when you show your example. So that's awesome. Noah, do you have thoughts on this as well that you want to share?
I think everything has been said. I'll just add one small thing, and I think that the visual interpretation of each one of these things, because a motivation can have several types of visual executions. So I think that the visual execution is something that you really need to work at. Like like Claudia said, let's put something that's exactly the opposite of what you would think you were going to get. So a lot of work and effort putting into that, and just simple things like always having your brand logo, up on the front, because you want people to understand exactly what you're talking about, showing, the product as soon as possible. All of these things are things that work really, really well when you want someone to grab their attention and do it in a very quick amount of time.
Yeah, that's great. And, it makes me think a little bit. One of my favorite books on web development, like for non-developers, like about UX and stuff, it's super old, but it's called Don't Make Me Think, right? And that should be the title of the book for internet marketing. Because what you're touching on is I shouldn't be guessing what the point is, who this is coming from, what they want me to do. There should be no brain power involved, because you have 2 seconds, right? So I think that's a really nice point. So thank you for sharing that. So, I asked you all to come prepared to share a piece of creative that didn't work. Because sometimes I feel like in these webinars, we're all patting ourselves on the back. I'm so awesome. Everything I do succeeds. But we know the path to success is a total graveyard of things that didn't work. And so we'll take a look at some of these examples. And I'd love for you to share sort of what your thought process was when you launched the creative, and then where it missed the mark, and what you would do differently. What would your next step be based on how it went? And so Dale, maybe we'll start with you. I know you have a slide that shows some of your creatives. So why don't we kick off with that?
Great. Yeah, let's look at the slide. I went very tactical with this example and specific. So I thought that would be most useful for everyone. So there's 2 different examples, both here on, or A/B tests, both here are on Google UAC, which is a fantastic platform, has taken a lot of the work out of how we run campaigns, but also has, created this dynamic where it's a little bit of a black box and you don't know what's going to work when. So these are examples, the top 2 blue ones, of how one creative approach that works in a specific channel can fail in other channels. So failing here in Google UAC. In the top example, which specifically, ran in an A/B test. You can see the banners that showcased our app on the left spent 6x more and had a 35% lower CAC than the banners with the lifestyle photography. So, the lesson learned here is in this very limited space, small, visuals, low dwell time, like customer needed to see it was an app and click there, and versus like the lifestyle photography, which works in other channels, wasn't exactly resonating here on this Google UAC campaign. Similarly, if you look at the bottom two sets of creatives on the left, you have ones that are featuring one-liners that are specific value props, very focused things that the customer is going to get out of using the app. And the right is broad statements, more brand value statements. And so you can see again that these transactional messages win out with 2x the spend. So the algo liked it, better clicks, more engagement. So it spends more, which obviously you want. And it had a 45% reduction in CAC versus those loftier brand statements, both showing the app again. And so this is how we approach all our channels, right? Which is we're constantly A/B testing. We're constantly recirculating creative back through. We're seeing what's working on different channels, and then we're finding something that's working, and then we're iterating on it. So, the app working with the, statement, then we stretched it into other statements and got more learnings from that. And then you narrow that down again and continue to press into that black button versus white button versus blue button. Like, this is a very focused DR example, but it's again an example of like right message, right part of the funnel, right platform and timing, and knowing what works and pressing into it. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And what I think is actually really interesting too, like you have a really deep background in digital. You've been in the space for ages. And even something you would think would work well, like the lifestyle image, you would expect to outperform. I'd have expected the same, to be honest. But that's the importance of data and testing, is that you just don't always know until you have the data in front of you.
Yep. And listen, it's not, you figure it out and you move on. You got to go back to it because there's going to be fatigue. And then, in 6 months or however many months, depending on volume and spends, that lifestyle image might start working again with a different, set of messaging, because it's again, a new eye-catching piece of creative or something that might connect to someone at the right time. So we don't, it's not like we figure out what works on a channel for a campaign and just run with it. You're going back and you're testing and you're finding new insights and maybe a complete flip of the data that you had originally, and you can freshen up the campaigns that way.
Yeah, I mean, as creatives, we need to be more open to being wrong, really, right?
We're often wrong. We just have to, cut those losses quickly and, be wrong a lot, because if we're not wrong a lot, we're not finding the right examples.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a question in the chat. It's pretty tactical, but I think you might be able to provide some thoughts because it actually really links to what you were sharing. But one of the questions someone has is they're using Google Ads, and their ads from 2 years ago were working fine. Suddenly they've seen a big drop from like 30,000 installs down to 300. Do you have any thoughts on how you troubleshoot when something does well for a long time, you get, you feel like you can relax, and then suddenly it's not working? Any ideas?
Yeah, those are sad moments. I've been there. We used to have, our brand was purple, and then we redesigned to this wonderful blue, and we had some amazing ads that just like ran evergreen in the background, amazingly efficient. And then one day they went kaput. And, you don't know if it's the algo that just tired of it, if it's just like got stagnant. You kind of just have to take the learnings of what worked well in that ad. Like, why do you think it worked so well? And maybe it wasn't actually the creative. Maybe it was something on that platform where it had super high engagement that it caught fire, and maybe that's the hook. Actually, you would do just as well with a different creative, but you need to get that initial engagement that connects the algo to then want to prioritize the ad spend. Sometimes it plays in like that. So I'd say just look back at it, really take a hard look and look at the learnings of like what worked, what made it work, and make 10 new versions of that and put them out there and start again. But it happens. They fatigue, something changes in the platforms, or, you know, your customers just tire of it. Too many emotions.
Awesome. So next up, Claudia is going to share an example of a creative that didn't go so well. It's a video. And I'm really excited to hear your insights. And those of you joining us, you know, this made me laugh. It made me smile, yet it still didn't perform so great. So I'm really excited to hear the insights behind it. So let's roll the video, and then maybe you can share some thoughts.
Yeah, before we start, I think it's important to, you know, understand the context where, you know, this film was produced. So we used it to be like a single category business, just with, you know, walk-in facilities and in-person classes. And overnight, we lost 100% of our supply. So all the gyms, all the studios, all professional trainers, you know, they were not able to provide their services for a long time. And it took 3 weeks for all the 10 markets to be completely, you know, closed. So one, we had to pivot our business. We had to come up with new ways to make well-being universal. How do we provide services to our clients, partners, and members? So we created, you know, different products. We entered in new categories, and we had to present. We had actually to reposition ourselves to all those 10 markets. So that was the problem we were trying to solve. And it took us 4 weeks to redesign and launch the new products. And there was the campaign, you know, aiming to reposition the brand and introduce this new concept of, you know, a complete well-being platform. So let's take a look at the video, and then I can comment what worked and what didn't work with this creative.
We used to come up with poor excuses all the time.
Yeah, dude. I think it's gonna rain.
But these days are different. So we need different excuses. That's why you have Gym Pass. Want to avoid that unbearable call? A meeting with your personal trainer is a good excuse. Don't want to deal with those never-ending chores. Breathe in and dive into a live class with your friends. More into strength training than gymnastics. Not a problem. Spinning. We've got that too. Don't have time to binge watch that popular TV show? Not to worry, your therapy session is starting right now. And while you're at it, how about a meditation class? We also have Zumba, martial arts, functional training, nutrition classes, archery, cardio, and I'm not quite sure what that is. But we have it too. And if you're still not satisfied, there's even a class to help you go to sleep. With Gym Pass, you can find an activity you like whenever you want. Feel good. That's Gym Pass.
I liked the guy swimming. I don't know how this didn't do well.
Yeah, that's the unexpected we want to work with. So yes, so first, I love this video. My team, my creative team also loves this video. And it worked pretty well, you know, in large, you know, presentations to large audiences, like a meeting with a new client, launching a new client, re-engaging with employees of one of our clients. So showing that, like, this 90-second video was super nice for this purpose. But when we tried to, so we can see that there's a very nice script, very good narrative. It actually, you know, at the end, you understand that we are like a multi-category platform, a complete well-being platform. But working with, you know, video ad platforms like YouTube, retargeting, using on Instagram, for example, it didn't work. So we tried to make like a shorter versions, like a 15 seconds, 30 seconds. But, you know, that we had this stoppable power, but, you know, it was really hard to convey the message at the end just by, you know, reutilizing and shuffling around this amazing long piece into shorter versions. So the main lesson learned, and we were all in a rush. We were pivoting the business, we were relaunching the product. So we developed this movie here in 2 weeks. So there was a need for speed, but at the end, the planning was not end to the beginning. So do I want to use this on TikTok or Instagram stories or the newsfeed or retargeting former subscribers? So there was a major piece that was missing here that it took us like very long. So there is a huge production involved here. So dozens of actors that they were not like professional actors, they were like art directors, helping us to shoot with the best light, alone at home. So those were the ones who had the equipment at home. So it took us like a huge effort to shoot this one, and lots of weeks more to make this work in video ad platforms. So the main lesson learned here is that you start planning not only on the creative side, what is the big idea, what is the messaging, but also what are the platforms you're going to use this, and what is the ideal format. Is this language, the best one for this platform? And then building the script or shooting with that in mind. So that was my main lesson learned. But I love this creative. My team loves it. We use it, heavily into multiple channels. But big lesson learned. Plan into the beginning. Very specific visuals for each platform.
That's great. And, something you really touched on is the importance of thinking about the channels in advance and customizing. Noah, I know you have some specific thoughts on this. So let me pass it to you. Maybe you can share some ideas around customization and what we should be thinking about on a per channel basis.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think that a couple of things I'll also say that you guys both touched on is the iterations. I think that at the end of the day, when it comes to running ads and performance and social media, the concept is to constantly optimize and see what's going to be the thing that's going to work. So it's really hard to look at an ad and say that didn't work, because you just sent your child out there into the social media world and you're seeing what's happening, but you shouldn't be disappointed if it didn't work. You should just take that back and say, all right, now let's do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 iterations and make sure, try and change things, different elements. And here at yellowHEAD, we have our own data analysis technology called Allison, where we break down our creatives into different elements, and then we can see which elements perform best for different creatives. And then when we do iterations, then we say, okay, let's change these elements and let's change other elements. And that's how we try and find the right creative that's going to be the winner out of, after trying a bunch of different things. But I also think that what Claudio said is super, super, super important, because at the end of the day, we have to understand that different platforms have different rules. When you go on TikTok, or if you go on Snapchat, if you go on Instagram and Facebook, each one of those have completely different behaviors of the audience, and you have to fit those behaviors. So if on Facebook, you wouldn't actually run an ad with, that it's all dependent on voiceover, right? People don't listen to ads with voice. You should add subtitles. Or TikTok, you might not even run the ad just as you did on Facebook, but you would recreate it with creators who would shoot it themselves and maybe on the phone. So each one of these platforms, you have to understand the rules of the platforms and generate the creatives based to the platforms, the best practices, the way people want to receive that content on that specific platform. And then, of course, constantly monitor, see how it goes, and do iterations. And I think you should never be disappointed when something doesn't work. You should just say, how do I make it better?
Absolutely. And maybe it's a good time now to share your example, because I know you wanted to talk a little bit about channel optimization with that.
Yes, perfect. So this is a very hardcore direct response performance-based creative for BuzzRx. BuzzRx is an app that allows you to find discounts on prescription drugs. And one of the messages we were running at the time was about the fact that you can save money in 5 seconds. So what we wanted to do there, and I don't know if you saw it, but right off the bat, we had that 5 seconds countdown. And something about that countdown, it's something that is a stopping moment. You know, someone tells you there's only 5 seconds, like you don't have to stick here very long. Stay just for 5 seconds and you might see what's happening on this ad. And also constantly throughout the whole time, we had a persistent logo that said the message right from the beginning. So and then in the end, you know, like you saw the money being saved. So it was super simple. The logo was from the beginning. You saw the app from the beginning. And that specific ad was for Facebook. I'll say that we took that same message and we also made 2 other versions specifically for TikTok that we did with creators, and for Instagram that was more like polls-like. So we really took a big message, a big idea, and then we broke it down into different things. And if we wanted to do an awareness campaign, then we could also take that and create something bigger. So the idea here is really, you know, finding the motivation, bringing the message out, and then seeing how it fits for the different platforms, and then running those different platforms and seeing it works, doesn't work, iterations, and everything that everybody here has been saying.
I think Claudia and I just wrote down try countdown in
Countdown gives a sense of urgency, and also people like to know, like, how much time do I have to watch this ad, right? Like, and when you tell them, try 5, try 3, try 2, you know, try all sorts of countdowns, 10s, and see how it works. I really recommend it.
Funny, you guys took away try the countdown. I was laughing because I was like, the prescription was for Viagra. Interesting choice.
You said show stopping, right?
I didn't even notice. I didn't notice that. That was nothing I was watching.
So one of the questions from the audience, and you are all asking great questions, keep them coming. To evaluate the effectiveness of your ad creative, what about asking the audience for feedback, like in real time? Have you tried that? Is it feasible? My 2 cents would be, you don't have to ask for feedback. You literally get it by what happens. Curious if anyone, though, has tried this idea of asking and seeing what people say.
It depends if you're referring on getting engagement. For example, if you upload a post and then you want to see how people are responding to it. So I can say that a lot of times we try creatives that use different trends, right? So hot trends. So there was a time when there was like this formula, this mathematic formula, and it was in a couple of different rows. And then, you know, it would kind of be a challenge, and it'd say, could you solve it? And then we'd get feedback. So we weren't doing it intentionally to get the feedback, but we were doing things that were really trendy right now. And we knew that people loved them and that made them stop. And so I think it always adds to the actual metrics and say, hey, if people are engaging with the ad, then it says something good about it. It wasn't the main intention, but I believe that maybe Claudia and Dale could say from a more of an engagement-based perspective. But yeah.
The feedback for me is really engagement, right? And clicks and performance. So we'll see that feedback in the data and how each ad performs. I think another interesting thing which has come about with all these social channels is you kind of do get feedback, like Noah said, in comments and in engagement. And sometimes it's completely unexpected. And it also can impact the performance of the ad. I use this example in talking about how you can create a perfect storm of an ad doing really well, and it actually wasn't a great ad, by just like playing the algorithms on some of these channels that use engagement metrics as one of the factors of how, you know, relevant your ad is, or, you know, how engaging it is. And so we had a video ad. It was done really, really cheap. It was probably took us like $500 to do, but it was this video. We were testing a whole bunch of different concepts, and it was this garage sale, 2 couples, split screen. It's kind of ugly ad. And one couple keeps saving their money and stashing, and their value grows. And the other couple is buying things, and they're buying things online. And then like the last scene resolves with the couple that's doing, you know, the consumer side, having a garage sale, and the other couple rolls up, with their baby in a stroller that had been saving, and they're like, we don't need this. And like, as an ad, it got the concept of like, you should save your money and not spend it on stuff. But it wasn't that great of an executed ad. But the thing ran gangbusters, like gangbusters. It had the best CAC. It performed amazing. It ran for months and months. And you know why? In the comments, our actress selection, there was one couple that was interracial, and that was the comments. It was a whole stream of negative comments about like, why is this person with that person? Why is it always like this? It became like more of a like hot topic of commenting. I think that's obviously why the ad took off. It wasn't the ad, it wasn't us, it wasn't the content, it was the engagement on the ad, which we didn't even plan for. That was a little salacious and got it going. So that's, I think, an interesting example of like, things can happen, and it might not just be the creative, it's the engagement.
Yeah, I think, it's about what is the ultimate goal you're optimizing for. Because sometimes in social media, you do want your audience to engage with video, a TikTok trend, etc. But when you need to define what is real, the end goal you want it to. So I've seen a lot of ads that have a very high CTR, but people don't buy it. So we are not here to optimize the CTR. We are here to engage more people with our products. And I have one very interesting case. We were exploring this idea of using the unexpected scenes to earn attention, and we were trying to combine different sports into one single ad. And we had like those random combinations, like classic ballet and CrossFit, or swimming with I don't know, like weightlifting, etc. And then at the end, I still remember the ad that performed the best was combining dance classes with CrossFit. It has nothing to do, but I don't know why that combination that looked, weirdo, actually worked. And the second, we didn't use like a regular, CrossFit, person. We used someone with a 250 pounds, in a CrossFit class. And that was trending in the comments, everyone thanking us for, changing the stereotype of someone that, practices CrossFit, and created a long conversation in the comments just because of that fact of, using the unexpected visual. So usually we don't ask. And when you deal with audiences that are as big as, millions, it's really hard to get, a good representation, statistical, significance just by asking like a bunch, this handful of potential clients. But if you work on a niche, like the top 10 banks in America, you might ask, people that you're connected with, but in our case, that just doesn't work. We prefer like running an A/B test and running like 20, 30 different creatives and then deciding for the best one. It's usually less time consuming and more effective.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting too, because both of your examples of getting engagements, it wasn't engagement baiting. It was that your creative matched your brand values, and that happens to be controversial with some people, right? Because I think sometimes people think, oh, let me put a typo in because then I get 1,000 comments. And that's not really what we're advocating, right? It's more, if it matches your brand values, then you can really get, sometimes the unexpected happens. So we have a few audience questions that I want to go through because we're almost at time. So if you have any questions, get them in now. We'll see how many we can get to. But first question, and I'll ask just one of you to answer. For Facebook, how critical is the thumbnail? Should we spend a lot of time on superstar thumbnails for our videos? Who wants to take this one?
I would say no. I mean, of course, at the end of the day, you have to try a lot of different thumbnails, but it's not really about, making the most creative thumbnail. It just needs to be, a representation of whatever is your main message. And then my recommendation is to do a lot of A/B testing on thumbnails, not just keep it to one, but to experiment with those as well.
Awesome. Excellent. Claudia, quick question that I think you're well suited to answer, which is, how do you deal with international or multilingual audiences? Because I think all the examples we're sharing are US based, correct? So
Yes.
how do you handle that?
Tough question. So first, we only do like in the local language. We don't try to use English as the English for all the markets we operate. Second, we try to customize the visuals as much as possible. For example, we are in a hyperlocal business, so featuring a partner or a client or a specific sign from the country or from the city the person is watching the ad is super relevant, super. So we customize it at the best of our efforts, but we only local language. We try to use actors and signs that resonate well with the audience. Although there are some markets that are really tough. If you don't use local people to shoot the ads, they just don't resonate. Just to here for reference, like Italy and Mexico are my biggest challenge right now. We need to have like a lot of local shooting and adapt a lot, but that's how we face international audiences here.
And if I can jump in here really quickly, there's also a big differentiation between localization and culturalization, right? You can take an ad that is running in English and just localize it, translate it to a different language, whatever. But culturalization means also taking whatever motivations you thought were relevant in the US might not be relevant in another country, and just really making it fit from a messaging standpoint to however that geo connects with the same product. Just to keep in mind.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. And so one last question in this one, Dale, I'm going to send your way. Somebody is asking about unsexy commodity products. Naturally, I thought of you. But they're basically saying things like car insurance, because you're in financial services and there's a lot of pricing involved. How do you stand out when maybe people aren't so interested in the product itself, but it feels necessary to them? What are things that you could do to stand out?
Yeah, I think you need to represent your brand in an aspirational way and make it sexy. Like that goes across every industry and every product, right? And sexy doesn't mean the same thing to everyone, right? It's whatever it's meaningful to that person that's aspirational. So I think finding the right way to connect in the right visuals and in with photography and lifestyle that connects to those people and means something to them is the right way to go. You can't just show your app 24/7. You're never going to evolve the brand by just relying on technology. You have to have that emotional connection, that human connection, something that makes you feel like this is a part of you and a part of what you want to use for your lifestyle. And so I'd say you got to keep trying. Just keep trying, and don't make it cheesy, please. Just try. The clean, nice, beautiful, or real, whatever your audience you think needs to see to connect to your product.
Yeah. Well, like everything is sexy in some way to someone, right? Like the benefit and kind of focusing on that. So that's awesome. Well, I could ask you all questions all day. This is really fun and I'm learning a lot. Hopefully the audience is getting a ton of tips. Unfortunately, it's time for us to wrap up. So I will pass it over to you, Dave, to bring us home.
Thank you so much, Krista, and a big thanks to all of our speakers today for all of their insights, Dale Sperling, Noah Miller, Claudio Franco, and our moderator, Krista Nair. Thanks also to yellowHEAD for making today's event possible. Just a few quick final notes here. If you'd like to view this webinar all over again, you'll be able to do that in about 30 minutes right here on this page. And also, just a reminder before you leave us today, if you could use the rating system on your screen to let us know what you thought, we would love to see your feedback. And you can rate this webinar on a 5-star scale. Like I said at the beginning, you can also provide us with comments and other feedback. So please take a couple of moments to do that before you leave. And finally, a reminder that today's webinar is copyright 2021 by VentureBeat. The presentation materials are owned by or copyrighted by VentureBeat, which is responsible for their content, and the individual speakers are solely responsible for their content and their opinions. Thanks so much for being with us today. That does conclude today's VB Live event. We will see you next time. Have a great day.